Hello, welcome to Whole Faith Church and Mental Health Podcast with me. I'm Robert, and I'm here with David, and we're basically talking about the intersection and intertwining of these topics, things we've been doing for years, but now we're pressing record and sharing it with everybody. I'm so excited for today's topic, this podcast topic, David.
Yes, yes, it's needed. It's something that we are afraid to talk about in public a lot. It is things that it. I think this whole podcast is that kind of a deal. But people are
Yes.
afraid to say things, but they're talking about it all the time. And so yeah, definitely something we can kind of talk about, and it's okay today, right? We can shh. No one will know. No one will
It's
know we're talking.
absolutely okay because we're missing the mark. So
Yeah, that's
we
right.
need
That's
more and
exactly
more.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So tell me, so we're gonna tackle from the clinical side here on this episode. So, um, give me your kind of give me a little bit. This is kind of back from before, but a little bit of your background and why mental health in the church matters so much to you.
Okay. Well, I am by profession a licensed mental health professional and have been for over 25 years. And so this has certainly been the work that I've done is mental health care.
Yeah,
Working with children, families, and adult clients. And at the same time, I mean, I've always been a person of faith. I've always been
yeah,
a Christian. I mean, went to church since I can remember. So these two, pieces, if you will, have been a part of my life for a long time.
yeah.
So I've kind of lived with the intersection of the two personally,
Right.
um, for a long time. And so I've seen, where that has been something, positive and certainly can be and work well. But then I've also seen where it's not been the best
Yeah,
in terms of the way people have looked at the two
yeah.
and handled it.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me, what are what are some churches getting right?
Oh, I love that we start with that question, right?
Okay.
Because here's the thing, we definitely want to talk about what people aren't talking about, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah,
we'll talk about isn't being helpful, but it's so important to note that we're not the only people talking about this, and there are people who are getting this right that are understanding that your faith and your mental health can coexist and should.
right.
They're both valuable, right?
Yeah,
One doesn't erase the other, and they're both components of you. And so I think there are a lot of churches that are getting it right, quote unquote. And I guess what I would mean by that is they're not afraid to talk about mental health, and they understand mental health is real, and that people, in their church are going to have mental health needs, and they do talk about that. They do help support people in the church who have mental health needs. They maybe even, create relationship and collaboration with local mental health professionals. They make referrals for people in their church. They're doing all these pieces that really work well and are
mm,
helpful and show that they understand, I'm not afraid to talk about mental health, and I
yeah.
don't view it as something evil or as a lack of faith.
Mm-hmm.
I recognize it as a real thing that people struggle with, just like a medical condition. And we support people in our congregation,
Yeah,
in that way. I do think that's kind of getting it right. And I think that there are certainly churches I've been in, there's pastors, leaders in churches I've met who do understand that
Hmm.
and are very active in that way.
Yeah.
So that's real.
Yeah.
And we're glad for that. We just want to see that be a bigger, broader
Yeah.
understanding.
Yeah. Um, what give me a good story of a client that has had a really positive experience with church, and having the church really help them with their mental health, whatever that might be.
Yeah, actually, I think I'll share two.
Okay.
And I'll just kind of keep them pretty brief. And obviously, if I ever share anything on here about a client, I will make sure that I, you know, keep things
Sh-
confidential and
Absolutely. Yeah.
identify the information or amalgamize, the
Yeah.
situation or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
It's real information, but it's not going to point directly to who the real client might be. Um, I'll start with when I've received
Okay.
referrals from many churches.
Yeah.
And so even that alone, and sometimes I don't necessarily know anyone at that church. I think
Okay.
they've heard of me. They just heard that, maybe I'm a Christian and that and I'm a mental health therapist,
Yeah.
and they're referring somebody that goes to their church to me to help with mental health issues,
Mm,
whatever it is, depression, anxiety, trauma. And that's always impressive to me. I'm like,
mm.
"Oh, well, that's nice." You know?
Yeah.
That is something that I remember a particular client being referred that way, coming in to see me that way.
Okay.
And so I didn't really have any direct connection back to leadership in the church with them, but it was something we talked about often
Okay.
as one of their supports. And as we worked on things, right in there in the mix was the support and the help
Yeah.
that you can get from your pastor, or
Yeah.
certain leaders in your church. That was part of what we discussed as we worked on other things. And they felt that support.
Yeah.
I mean, they obviously were referred to me from
Yeah.
those folks, but they also felt like they cared about them, they
Mm,
understood what they were going through, and they served as support people for them.
mm.
And that was huge. I mean, it just is this feeling of, yes, this is the way this is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And there have been a few times where I've actually worked collaboratively with a pastor
Okay.
because the person may come in and we're working on, let's say, trauma,
Hmm.
but then they start getting, and we'll do a podcast on this later, by the way.
Okay. Cool. Yeah.
And they start talking about, why did God allow this trauma to happen? And, certainly I can sit with them in that space, but then I'm also like, well, maybe this is a good question for your pastor too.
Yeah.
There's this collaborative piece that happens. That's happened a few times, and
Yeah.
I'm really comfortable with that, especially when it makes sense.
Yeah.
The other example I would share would be you, David Stone, Pastor Stone,
Yes.
uh, and myself,
Oh.
because not as formally, but
Huh.
I mean, back in the early days, especially when you had your church plant going, um, you're back with me. You went away for a
I went
second.
away,
I
but I was
I
here.
think you were in shock and you had to take a break.
Exactly.
I think
I don't
that's
know
what
what the
happened.
deal is. Yeah. Anyway, we'll
Uh,
work on the can
but
on
anyway, you felt. um,
Uh,
yeah, I would come over at times and just sit with you and be
yeah,
like, "Hey, this is going on with me," and you'd listen, and you might even share what's going on with you, but,
yeah,
like, even, your informal acceptance of me talking about my stress or
yeah.
my anxiety or whatever, was just supportive,
That's
It
cool.
wasn't like you were not wanting to hear it or, you know, shushing me away with like, just go read your Bible more. And I think that
Yeah,
that is huge. I think it
yeah.
doesn't even necessarily have to look one way for it to
Right.
be successful. Like there's different versions and level of this, but I think it definitely starts with, an openness and, a relational component here
Yeah,
instead of sort of a judging and a dismissing piece.
yeah, yeah. Well, and I think the viewing is mutual. I know that a big part of our story together has been walking through things, and
Yeah.
help us kind of transition to a different spot in ministry, that was a better fit. And so that's a really cool thing. Um, so um, let's talk about the problematic things. What
Okay.
are some things that your clients hear that are maybe problematic?
Yeah, those are hard. They're hard for me personally because I think, mental health care, even, a lot of mental health theories. Of course, there's multiple mental health theories and approaches, but mental health care and a lot of theories align with a lot of things that Jesus taught and
Yeah,
that Jesus as an example and things in the Bible. And so it's really hard for me to hear and experience the problematic things because I think the two concepts work so well together
yeah,
and can work so well together. But things that I hear, which probably other people listening have heard as well, is, you don't really have depression, anxiety, or trauma. Your faith isn't strong enough,
right,
or you're
right.
not praying enough, you're not reading your Bible enough, you're not doing these things, or it's sin. You have
Yeah.
some sin that's caused your trauma or your depression or your suicidality. It's hearing those messages are so really awful for
Mm,
someone who's struggling with some mental health issues because first of all, you're struggling
yeah,
and you're struggling in a way you may not even understand or you may feel like you don't know what to do and then somebody's coming along that is probably someone you trust
right.
and they're telling you, "Oh, it's none of that, it's you.
Mm,
You're not doing enough of this, or you've
mm,
done something wrong." I think those messages are the worst of the worst because
yeah,
they really make everything worse for the person,
yeah,
and that's really the direction you don't wanna go. But then there's just other things too, like, well, you better be careful. That stuff is really not real and they'll lead you down a wrong path. And,
yep.
you maybe shouldn't do that. I think there, the worst things are just hearing the devaluing of real mental health issues and needs.
Yeah,
Because then, this person potentially is not getting the help that they really need to move forward and
right.
be healthier.
Yeah.
Um, of course, when a client is setting with me, it's a little different because I guess they didn't believe that and they showed up anyway, right? And they're just
Right.
telling me they've heard things, but obviously on some level they don't actually agree with it or
They're
believe it
not
because
buying
they're
it.
actually
Yeah.
therapy off. But what about all the people who just never even go in because they're hearing these things and that's the path they're going down, and then they're continuing to suffer,
Right.
and that suffer unneedlessly because they could be getting some help that they need.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. I know we'll talk a little bit about some of those problematic messages in another episode when I'm on the hot seat. Because I
Yes, I
think,
can't.
yeah, exactly. Um, wha how do some churches, and maybe this is a little more from my, and maybe this is for later. Um, how could a church, from your perspective, support mental health?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I mean, I do want to say it's not all the responsibility of the church
Good.
or the pastor,
Okay.
leaders in the church. It's a collaborative approach. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I think the things that I've seen work are when, the church is responsive to the mental health therapist and the mental health therapist is responsive to the church, and recognizing, the collaboration that can be so helpful and beneficial. I've
Mm.
had churches, a couple of churches in my community, reach out to our clinic over the years and say, hey, we think we have quite a few people in our church who could benefit from
Mm.
some counseling. Would you make an arrangement with us, like if you came out to our church one day a week and we paid half of the counseling
Okay.
session for each
Yeah.
person? I mean, what an awesome, and I'm always like, let's try to make it work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That I think when it's a collaboration both ways, because as we'll get into, maybe not in this podcast, there on the mental health side, people can be talking trash about
Yeah.
faith. And so it really has to collaborate both directions. And I think that's the key. That's the
Mm.
key to it being successful. As a mental health therapist, I love it when churches do reach out or they make referrals or they are just not just to me, but
Yeah.
to any mental health professional that maybe they trust and have a relationship with, maybe somebody who's going to their church.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mental health professionals in this town we live in who go to church and are sitting in churches every Sunday. And so it's an easy collaboration because this mental health professional is already a member of your congregation. And so I think it could just be something that works a lot better than it does. It does work. We
Mm-hmm.
know there's workable situations, but I still see a lot of places where it's not working well.
Yeah.
So I would answer that with collaborate, reach out, talk, interview me,
Oh,
ask
yeah.
me questions about my faith, ask me
Yeah.
questions about how I would work with a person from their church. I mean, I should be able to answer those questions.
Yeah.
And you should be able to be comfortable with my answers or go interview another mental health professional,
Mm.
and find a place where you feel like you've got a good collaboration going. That's kind of what I think I'd like to see from the church side. And of course, just, not shutting down the idea that mental health issues are real.
Yeah. Right. So this may not land at all, may not resonate, but from my perspective, I think there's a lot of boogeyman. I call it "ain't it awful" preaching, and it's all um, pits one side against the other, and of course we have a lot of that these days. But is did you ever experience? And I wonder if it comes from sometimes if you come from faith traditions that I think you and I have come from, and they're what would sociologists would call low traditions, so they're more less of the liturgical, less of the, corporate, but more of the individual expression. And often that is not as education is not as important. I sat in a seminary class with a guy of another denomination faith, and I said, "What in the world? How did you get here?" And he goes, "Well, in my particular denomination, education is not really a priority, and so I
Hmm.
wanted to come here, get a really good education and a rigorous, that kind of a thing, so that I can go back and teach in my denomination's universities." So that was his goal. So I
Right.
guess my question, long way to get around it, um, have you sensed that in your experience, in your education, and in your training as a mental health professional, did you experience the tropes of deconstruction of your faith, of we don't allow faith into mental health, all those kind of things? Did you experience that in your education, in your training?
Um, Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, again, because I've walked in these two paths. I mean, I was like the little mini therapist for all my friends when I was
Right.
in high school. This was like really the only way I was successful socially. It's like people came to me when they wanted to talk about something that was bothering them.
Okay.
For
That's
one,
awesome. Yeah, that's cool.
I ran with that straight because it was usually the only way I was hanging out with anybody because I wasn't best at the social skills and social
Oh my,
navigation.
that's
I
awesome.
mean, and so anyway, yes, I've experienced both. I've
Okay.
been on both sides of this where I've sat in mental health trainings or classrooms specifically, and faith was kind of being trashed.
Uh,
And I've been in, religious and church circles where mental health was being trashed. So I've
yeah.
kind of experienced both.
Yeah.
And I don't like either.
Yeah, right.
So, because I disagree with that, both directions. I know personally, I'm kind of existing here because, my faith is intertwined with my understanding of mental health and my neurodivergence and my support needs. I mean, that's why I'm here because
Yeah.
I understand all those things and they
Yeah.
all bring me knowledge and support and keep me moving forward. So it's always sad when you see things shut down.
Mm-hmm.
You run across somebody who's just like that. It obviously tells you kind of more about where they're coming from than really anything else, but
Right.
it's not helpful. It
Right.
really isn't. And then you have to wonder the people that they're getting in front of, that they're putting this kind of thought out on, that are not getting help
Yeah.
that they
That
need.
influence. That
Not
that
getting help either mental health wise or spiritually that they need
right.
because it's
They're
being
both
villainized down as
yeah, they're both
stupid
valid.
or whatever.
That's
Yeah.
that's cool. Um how do you, as a mental health professional, what do you want from me as a leader in faith communities?
Um, I would say, kind of back to something I brought up earlier, I think awareness that
Mm,
mental health is legitimate. And then, reaching out and trying to help people in your congregation, in your church who have mental health issues,
yeah.
not dismissing it, not ignoring it, but actually supporting them by reaching out to mental health professionals who you're comfortable with. I mean,
Yeah.
you don't want to reach out to a mental health professional who thinks, faith is stupid, right?
Right.
Like reach out to who you're comfortable with and
Hmm.
form those relationships and collaborate together. I think that's what I would like to see for sure. It would be awesome if everybody was doing that. I mean, talk about the people we'd help and talk about the churches we'd help because I do think sometimes churches just are like, I don't know what to do with this person. And
Yeah.
honestly, I've seen situations where somebody had some real mental health needs and the church just kind of wanted to get rid of them because they thought they were just too disruptive or too difficult or too
Yep.
energy draining.
Yep.
And that's another sad byproduct of this.
Mm, yeah. So, and I just keep thinking as you're answering these, um, this gauntlet of questions that I've been presenting to you, right?
Yeah.
I just keep thinking we that's what this whole podcast is about, right? Is the collaboration between two leaders and two spaces that are intertwined. I think, and whole, hence the name.
Yes.
We really do want to we want to be able to bring these two things together. Sometimes they get pitted against each other, and that's just not helpful. It's not healthy. So,
Correct. Yeah, couldn't
well,
agree
this has been
more.
an awesome conversation. I I
Yes,
I love what we're doing here, and I think we're just going to keep presenting and we're going to keep having our conversations, and we're going to press record. So
yes, we are.
for those for those three people that are listening, we're super glad that you found us. We're whole. It's a podcast all about faith, church, and mental health. And we're gonna, if you'd like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff, hit the notification bell. We're gonna hopefully try to get what every have some new content, every week or every other week, that kind of thing. So I think I'm on next. I think I'm on the hot seat. So we're going to talk about mental health from the pastor's perspective or the faith leader's
Yes.
perspective. So we'll see you guys soon. I hope you're well. Take care. See ya.
Bye.